Show of hands, who's first time here at CannaGather? Cool. Thank you all for coming out. And obviously, if you did not raise your hands before, please raise your hands now if this is not your first time at CannaGather. David, raise your hand higher, please. Thank you. You are my relative. You're bound to the honor code. Thank you. We are literally related. Raise your hand if you're an entrepreneur. Working in the cannabis industry, doing stuff, doing cool stuff. Very cool. A lot of entrepreneurs out there. Investor. Raise your hand if you're an investor. One more investor walking in. See you. Oh, nice shirt. Investors over there. Any investors? A lot of operators, entrepreneurs. Okay, I see you. You're gonna come up here in a sec. But this is sort of the makeup. A lot of people are interested to know, who is in this room. Sort of the breakdown, at least as I conceptualize it, based on purely anecdotal feedback and some quantitative feedback. But it's mostly entrepreneur, operator. You sort of notice that most of the folks in this room raised their hands when they were asked if they were an entrepreneur. Great. We have a bunch of service providers, lawyers, real estate professionals, accountants, etc. A bunch of investors. I think that this number is probably a little bit higher tonight, given the topic. Health and wellness, healthcare professionals, media, and folks from the political world. Play the game, find out what your seat neighbor is up to. Wasn't that fun? Take that as a yes. So the host committee is when you buy tickets for your 3 best friends or with 3 of your best friends, and you come to CannaGather together. If your name is Gary, you did that. You also get a shout out. Thank you, Gary. Gary right there. Thank you. Round of applause for Gary. You'll also be going home with some CBD oil. It's a pretty sweet deal if I say so. So thank you, CBD oil, for that. And then we have a couple new members for CannaGather. Basically, you are hanging out with me for an entire year. It's a lot better than it sounds, probably. There's other people that you get to hang out with too. That's a bit of a better deal. So Osman and Jeffrey, round of applause for both of you. You also get a T-shirt. You get a free +1. So members, we're now letting them bring someone for free. So you should become a member. This is a team effort. The team has grown substantially, as you can tell from the number of pictures that are on here that were not on here before. So major thank you to everyone on here, particularly Aryam and who helped out to literally set up all these chairs with the galvanized team. So round of applause for the entire CannaGather team. Eric sent me his photo like an hour ago, but I don't know. I figured I'd just leave it like that. Sorry, Eric. Special shout out to our sponsors. If you're interested in making CannaGather work, obviously the most important folks in this room are all of you who are coming here to learn and create in the cannabis industry. But it definitely helps to have sponsors who are helping subsidize and make this happen. So if you want to give me some money, Josh at CannaGather.com. So you'll hear from Mitch from Merida in a bit. A lot of interesting stuff to say. One of the most interesting portfolios that I've seen in the cannabis industry, as he'll talk about in a little bit. Cole Schatz, a longtime sponsor and partner, both sponsor and partner. Who would like to come up from Cole Schatz? Okay, great. Both in New York and New Jersey, leading a law firm for the cannabis industry.
My name is Alana Volkov. I'm an attorney with Cole Schatz. As Josh said, we have offices in New Jersey and New York that are relevant to CannaGather and people doing business in the 2 states. We have a full-service cannabis law group that consists of lawyers from all different departments of our firm, whether it's corporate, real estate, environmental, employment. We basically are a soup-to-nuts provider of legal services to the cannabis industry. We have a table out there, so if you have any particular questions about what we do or how we can help, or how we can work together. We're oftentimes partnering with our clients and potential clients to do business. So it's not just a one-way street where we're providing just the service and getting paid. We like to work with our clients and benefit them that way. And anyway, it's a pleasure and an honor to be a sponsor, and happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Thank you as always. Thank you.
So I wanted to start out with something I thought was pretty interesting. I don't know if everyone knows, but in 1971, there was a group of college kids from MIT and Stanford that did the first transaction on the internet. It was for some marijuana. Fast forward, and here we are today in an age where we could literally see a doctor in person, online, get your medical marijuana card, then at the same time go to a dispensary or get it delivered to your home from a dispensary. Marijuana Doctors is the #1 online referral platform for patients that are looking for a physician to certify them for medical cannabis. We've been operating for over 10 years now, and quite frankly, we've referred north of 400,000 patients that were pre-screened, certified in all 33 states now. I guess 3 haven't come online yet, but we have 3 more that just went live. And we expect this industry to really have a major impact on the opioid epidemic. That's one of the main reasons I decided to cash in my chips on Wall Street, walked away after 20 years. I was a vice president of a global investment bank, and here I am today. Never thought I'd be doing what I'm doing right now, sitting next to Josh, talking about the medical marijuana industry. I could tell you it's been a tremendous ride. Where we're going with Marijuana Doctors is just amazing. We're rolling out dispensaries in January, so patients will be able to go on our site, select from the products that each dispensary puts up there, and then they can get it delivered right to their house. Now, keep in mind, that's only legal in several states. New York happens to be one of them. We will be rolling out our product section sometime, I believe, in the second quarter of next year, which we expect to hit the market very hard. Anyone knows anyone looking for a job? We're hiring aggressively. Very tough to find good people out there. So that's my little commercial for marijuanadoctors.com. And we look forward to serving you, helping the community, and more importantly, helping patients find an alternative treatment. Thank you.
Thank you, Ray.
All right. Thank you, Josh, very much for giving me this opportunity to have our name involved with this event, which has completely surpassed my expectations. Unfortunately, this is my first one, but now hopefully I'll be coming to many more. I'm very lucky to be in a position of being able to invest in amazing people. That's what my company does. I founded Sinai Ventures about a year ago. We are a $90 million venture capital fund backed by one of the founders of SAP. And we've invested in a wide variety of companies, from technology to consumer to cannabis. So far, of the 50 companies we've invested in, only 2 of those have been cannabis, which we'd like to change that. For context, those 2 companies are, one is in the kind of brand space. It's called Dosist. I hope many of you guys have heard of it. Yeah, get some round of applause for Dosist. The other one is an up-and-coming delivery company called Dutchie, which was probably the coolest ever news article I've ever seen, which was Sinai Ventures invest with Snoop Dogg and Kevin Durant in a company, which has never happened and hopefully will happen many more times in the future. But I am just really excited, and I feel very grateful to be able to interact with people that are working on this industry, because I really think on both the medical level, on a spiritual level, on an emotional level, cannabis has the ability to make a huge impact on the world. And being a source of capital for those people in a world where a lot of funds are not able to make that happen is really quite a fun position to be in. So my email is eric@sinaivc.com. Love for all of you to email me with whatever it is that you're doing, whether it's services or a company or what have you. And as a prompt, both of my companies in the space are having a hard time managing payments. So if anyone is working on a payments company in the cannabis space, I will give you money. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you. Thanks, buddy. It's always very cool to see leaders in the tech world sort of move over, or at least dip their toe in the cannabis world. So thank you, Eric, for representing that. Still no luck with the speakers. Can you hear me? Oh, the speakers work. Okay, I'll just save that joke for another event. So Kim is really. No, the mic doesn't work. Okay, cool. So Kim is usually here. She is in Florida currently for Thanksgiving. Let's all say hi, Kim. Hi, Kim. But instead, we'll do something a little bit different. So as you may know, you're in New York State currently. Congratulations. I like it here. I've lived here my whole life. We are going to legalize cannabis, as you may have heard. That's it. Like, round of applause. Like, it's exciting times. We are the process. I'm like, wow, I didn't ask the question. Like, are you sure you're at the right place? Like, are you first time at CannaGather? Like, because no one laughed before. So like, first time at CannaGather, have you been here before, or are you here by accident? Apparently, it's like, thought a lot of people were here by accident, but we're going to legalize. The process is happening. Things are moving forward. And we're very fortunate enough, honored to have Axel, counselor to the governor, Axel Burnaby. If you want to stand up, raise your hand, or if you don't, either way, that works too. Counselor to the governor and some folks from his team who are here. And I thought it would be cool to just, if anyone had any particular ideas or things that you wanted to have addressed or be incorporated into the New York State program, either you did express it already at one of the hearings that they did, the many hearings that they did, or you didn't, and now you want to. Does anyone have anything that they would like to have incorporated into the legislation, or any parts of the program that they would like to see? Right there.
I would like to see the records of those incarcerated for small cannabis possessions be expunged with the legislation.
Couldn't agree more. Thank you. Anyone else? Oh, the speaker's still not working? She said that she would like to see all of the records expunged. Like a round of applause over there. Was there anything more? For anyone that was arrested for small amount cannabis possession. I feel like we'd have like a round of applause over there, and then like a round of applause over there once they hear it.
I think people that were sorry, is that loud? People that have been convicted of low-level cannabis crimes, nonviolent, that they should be able to get out of jail and still integrate into this big multi-billion-dollar company or industry that's going on now.
So in addition to having the records expunged, make sure that the people who are currently incarcerated are allowed to leave because they're there unjustly, arguably, theoretically. Now that it's legal, and in addition, that they're able to access the industry as well. Look in here in the back. That they're able to integrate to the industry, part of it. That's a very important point.
Public consumption.
Public consumption. Probably not a controversial one.
Health. I was gonna say health insurance coverage for medicinal cannabis patients.
You can clap. Health insurance coverage for medical cannabis patients? Joe Bondi. The suggestion was unlimited small licenses and home grow. Thank you, Joe. Right back there. So the question was, is there legislation that's pending? And that's sort of a complicated question, but fortunately we have an expert. So Doug, you want to answer this one?
So yes, there is legislation pending. In late 2013, Senator Liz Krueger from the Upper East Side introduced the Marijuana Regulation and Taxation Act. That bill has been amended since late 2013, and that is on the table. The governor's office is developing their own bill. They have been in consultation with Senator Krueger. So there's a pending bill. It's Senate Bill 34, Assembly Bill 35. C-print. You can go online and look at it. I actually urge everyone to look at what's out there now to get an idea of the proposed legislation and what's approved. But I will defer about what's going to happen next to Axel and his team.
Thank you. That's Doug. Were you guys able to hear, by the way? Cool. So that's Doug Green, Empire State Normal. Probably one of the probably two, if not the number one of the two most educated people in my mind for state level policies in New York. So thank you, Doug, for coming as always.
Hey, everybody. I'm Leo Bridgewater, and I figure I jump in on this real quick just because I hear there's some people here from the governor's office. So what do I have to offer you guys? At this point, you all know I'm one of the people who helped get PTSD added as a qualifying condition in the New Jersey medical marijuana program. Thank you. I'm also the National Director for Veterans Outreach with Minorities for Medical Marijuana. And you guys know me and Ronnie are co-creators of the CannaGather New Jersey platform. So what's happening? Real quick, and this is for those members of the governor's office to give you an update. Today, in New Jersey, our industrial hemp bill went through committee, 6-0. So it's headed to the governor's desk to be signed. What I have to offer you is a cautionary tale in the making. Because though we are poised to legislatively legalize cannabis, whatever this bill looks like, for people like us, and I'm talking about the diversity in this room, it's not going to be enough. I don't think at this point there's anything that Leo Bridgewater is going to say that's going to make one of these politicians say, oh, you know what, you're right, let me change that. Not now. And so the cautionary tale is, don't make light of that diversity and in minority inclusion. Because in New Jersey, in our state legislature, in our assembly, you guys are going to find out real soon, our assembly is filled with two types of people, Jetsons and Flintstones. And we all know them around here. In New Jersey, they still say gateway drug, y'all. They still say that. That's what I'm dealing with. It's like teaching a really old, stubborn person how to use their iPhone, and they won't listen. And the worst part about it, the most embarrassing part about it, as much hooping and hollering as me and Ronnie have been doing over the last few years, and my regular CannaGather folks know what kind of work we've been putting in. Y'all been watching this, and y'all been here for the beginning. And as much work as we've been putting in, they don't know to be embarrassed. That's the embarrassing part. And they are following the what not to do playbook. So what do we do? Good question. I love you, girl. That's my girl. What do we do? What we're learning is it's from the bottom up. So now I'm pulling all of you guys' cards, and I'm telling you that you have to go into your own communities and you have to start educating the people. That's the problem. That's what New Jersey's problem is. Our general population has absolutely no clue just how far advanced we are in this conversation. This right here, they don't know nothing about it. They don't know what it looks like when we are together. They don't even know the words that we use when we talk to each other. So when we come together like this, they shocked. They really don't think when they get together and they have these kinds of conversations, the room is filled with 98% white folks. And they think we don't exist. They think we ain't doing this yet. As much as what me and Ronnie are doing. They still got it twisted. And so the cautionary tale is that if you want this thing, you want to get this right, because Jersey could be what not to do too. So if you want to get this right, it's got to come from the bottom up. That's the cautionary tale. You got to start educating the people. We have to go beyond New York City. We got to go in them little hillbilly towns up north, out west, and everything like that. Yeah. We got to start educating. They still think they think hemp and cannabis is the same thing. Literally. They think CBD should be illegal. You get high. Yes. And we're always saying, what year are you? So the cautionary tale, please take this back to Governor Cuomo. Tell him what you saw in here tonight. Tell him how we talk when we're around each other. Because what you have in here is a wealth of knowledge, and ain't nobody asking us nothing. Peace. Sorry. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry, Ronnie. I thought that was you. Okay, my bad. Real quick. Okay, so shut up. I'm doing it. Anywho, so November 27th, you can find me and Ronnie and Josh. You can find us at CannaGather in Hoboken at 7 p.m. at the Koala Club. 1225. Y'all know what it is. 1225 Grand Street. Just look us up online. You can go click on the thing, RSVP. The confirmed speakers we have is actually, and this is for you guys to come on out to, Senator Nick Scutari, who's the architect and the one who introduced our current adult use bill, and Assemblyman Jamel Holly, who is leading the charge on the Assembly side and a member of the Legislative Black Caucus. So they will be in the House along with a plethora of some really serious speakers. It's going down. You guys, if you haven't been to a CannaGather New Jersey event, get ready to have your minds blown, because it is so much more. And and here's the thing, everybody in this room, if you are serious about doing this industry, if you are someone who is really, your craft is to do this plant, whether it be ancillary or not, everybody should be over there. There's no residency requirement. And in the city of Trenton, just to be even more clear, we just passed ordinance that I helped to write that allows for you to start getting to work right now. So if your business isn't physically here right now, it ain't because of the law in Trenton. So I just want to make sure that all y'all know your actions and everything that you do right now should be indicative of something that is imminent. Imminent means it's about to go down. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Leo. So just wanted to reiterate, well, I guess Leo's main point was New Jersey sort of leading the way. So thank you, New Jersey.
Tough to follow that speech up. It's going to be impossible. Hello, everyone. I'm Brian. So I am the founder and CEO of BrightMap. So what's BrightMap? BrightMap is a seed-to-sale software as a service platform for growers, processors, and dispensaries. We are building in a beautiful technology ecosystem for folks that are going to grow, process, and then sell it. The cool part about BrightMap is that we are a East Coast-based software company that is focused exclusively in this industry, which is a pretty unique thing for us because we're competing against all the guys in Colorado and California. So what's that really mean? Our emphasis is on cutting-edge technology and customer service, and we are so excited to be a company based in Maryland with operations hopefully in New Jersey and New York and everywhere up and down the I-95 corridor. So we're really excited to be a part of this community. I hope that this is the first of many gatherings for us here. And if anyone has any questions about what we do for growers, processors, and dispensaries, please feel free to see me. We're going to have our table. We have our table right outside here. And I guess the last thing is thanks for having us, Josh, and happy Thanksgiving to everyone.
Thanks for coming, man. Is Mitch here from Mitchell's Medicinals? I didn't see him before, so I'm not sure if he was able to make it. Mitchell's Medicinals, leading CBD company, longtime partner for CannaGather, both in New York and New Jersey. If you're interested in CBD, Mitchell's Medicinals, pretty straightforward. Webjoint. So thank you so much to Brian for coming all the way from Baltimore. And all the way from California, we have Chris from Webjoint.
Cool. I didn't forget about you. Hello, everybody. My name is Christopher DeLolio. I'm the CEO of Webjoint. Came all the way out from California to speak to you guys and network with you guys today. So what we do is make software for dispensaries and delivery services out of California and a few other states as well. We're currently in over 200 retailers and have half of the market on the delivery side in California. And with that, we've propped up a new brand platform that allows manufacturers to sell directly to the end consumer by using our network of retailers to accept orders. So now you can be in San Francisco, accept in San Francisco, and then have that dispatched to a retailer in the area. Same thing if you're in Los Angeles, San Diego. So that's what we're doing. So I want to thank Josh for bringing me out here. And if any of you guys want to network while I'm in New York, I'll be here till tomorrow night. So drinks, lunch, breakfast, whatever works, come talk to me. We also have a table down there. Thank you.
Thanks for flying out. You guys here back there? You guys here? Great. Crisis avert. So I want to give a shout out to some of our last sponsors, Leaf Legal, full service law firm, law professional, I should say. Stephanie Schumann, she does criminal defense, she does corporate. Vortex Power Fans for all of your fan needs. They've been sponsoring us all year, so thank you all the way from Canada. And then Splash, who you've purchased your ticket through. The man you all came here to see and hear from, Mitch Baruchowitz from Merida Capital. You know me so well.
I do.
So Mitch, who are you?
I'm Mitch Baruchowitz, the managing partner of Merida Capital Partners. And I just want to say, before even starting, I know some people in the room, and MJ Biz was last week, and there was a ton of people here or there in Vegas. This is mind-boggling to me. Just watching the evolution in a place like New York, where 4 years ago, when they started the process or so, to watch this many sophisticated people, this many passionate people who want to be here and are spending their free time away from their families. And I know Brian coming up from, we met 3 years ago probably at this point. Some old friends in the crowd. To be honest, it's a little overwhelming because of how hard it is to, I know you've had your struggles to build this the way you want, and one of the reasons why I wanted to come here is because I'd been hearing great things, and I mean, I'm seeing it in real life. So thank everyone for caring and coming. So what was the question? Who am I?
What's your deal?
Merida is a cannabis-focused private equity fund. We're probably one of the bigger ones at this point, but everyone is the biggest, so I try to stay away from any superlatives. Comparatives we can do, but we're a bigger fund. We're on our second fund, which is about to close. We'll probably launch our third fund in the next couple of weeks. Demand has been very thankfully spectacular. And we, if you want to just, we have 20 portfolio companies, some of the biggest companies in the space. We try to focus on what's called an ecosystem connectivity model, where we take companies and I use my staff, we become employees almost of the company, and we grind away with them to build companies that we think are essential to bringing regulatory compliance and packaging and childproofing and all the things you really need to build a medical industry, a consumer product, a pharmaceutical constituent, an inert product that might go into food, hemp seed oil that can go into as an emulsifier, sterit that can make pills. I mean, there's a whole panoply of things that cannabis and hemp can do, and we're doing it from the ground floor in a lot of ways. So that's kind of who I am, I guess.
And for some scale and context, when did you start the first fund? How big was it? Second fund, how big? And how much are you shooting for the third?
Well, I mean, the real story goes back probably all the way back to 13, as you know from what I wrote today. But it goes back even further. My best friend and business partner was hit by a car and paralyzed in 2001 or 2000. And watching him recover from a paralysis injury on opioids was one of the most devastating things. It really opened my eyes to how much opioids are really an acute illness or treatment rather than a maintenance. You can't, it's a very difficult drug to maintain because of the endocannabinoid system and the reaction of your system to opioids. And one day he just kind of turned to me and said, I'm going to commit suicide one day because I take so many opioids to go to sleep that I forget I'm paralyzed. And as your best friend and your brother, your business partner, you know, it's just watch him go through that. And within a month, he was in Colorado doing research on CBD on his back. And he would send me these business plans and these workarounds because in Colorado in 2008, that was really like the Neanderthal times compared to where we are today. And well, at some point, we figured out a business model, and then by 2012, Connecticut decided it was going to give out Jersey, to Leo's point, was really one of the pioneers of the limited license medical. It gave comfort to the East Coast states that they could implement a program that was highly controlled, and Connecticut announced they were giving out 4 licenses, and I was running a family office. I moonlighted for a lot of hours every night, maybe 10 hours a night, didn't sleep for about 9 months, and finished first in that licensing process. So what you think of as MSOs, you know, these multi-state operators, I guess in one way I was kind of one of the first. And then I won a license soon after in Minnesota. And the funny thing was back then, we were like, hey, it's going to be years till another state legalizes for medical, and we won't have to do this because this was so hard. And then like a week later, we were getting emails from like Illinois, like, hey, do you want to come and work, 7 months here for 19 hours a day? And we didn't say no to anything. And so after those years, the real turning point for me was spending $2.5 million in Maryland and applying for a license there. And knowing that I wanted to launch an ancillary focused fund that could provide some of the smoothers for friction in the place, whether it was, one of my experiences was I was looking for vape cartridges in Connecticut, and I was Googling, how do you get these things? Where do you get a child-proof packaging? And the guy was like, hey, pay up front, and if we deliver it, it'll be great, but if not, you're just screwed. And then, you think 2 years later, one of my portfolio companies, Kush, which you know well, you can literally online get 50,000 vape carts with your logo, fully financed. And so when that started to change, I really wanted to be there. That's where I wanted to be. And losing in Maryland devastatingly. It basically just the feeling of working living in Maryland for 65 plus days that year, away from my family in Western Maryland, building a company that you could lose, that couldn't even operate without a license, and then it's vaporized. Launching Merida 5 days later was already planned, but we thought it would be a celebration, not a funeral. So somehow we rescued Merida out of the crib, and we've probably spent, I spent about $100 million on cultivation before Merida, and now I spent about 60 or 70 at Merida over the last 2 years. So that's a long-winded answer, I'm sorry, but I figured people might want to know how the heck I got up here to be lucky enough speaking to Josh and you guys. So.
Well, I mean, I think we're all lucky to be hearing from you. So I sort of had a sense of, I went on your website, saw your portfolio, which I guess we'll get to in a second, with like Kush Bottles and Sophia, Valley Agroceutical, ProGeneration, I think New Frontier.
Wow, my new director of marketing over here.
And I was just like,
right off the top of his head, that made an impact on him.
Yeah, no, I remember it, and I was like, wow, this dude's pretty good. Like, I wish I had like money to invest in companies and know that these companies before they became big and like invest in them.
Some of it's luck. I mean, it's a space that's growing.
So I definitely remember that, and then I didn't actually realize that you had all of this experience beforehand as an actual entrepreneur operator, which I think that like most of the people in the room can sort of relate to. Like, not everyone in the room. There are some people in the room who do have, let's say $100 million to invest in the space, but I don't. So it's more, and like other people in the room are like, okay, how do I get involved? Like, what is the process of being an entrepreneur? What is that like? What was it like to apply for a license?
Well, as you know from, I write a commentary, which if you go to info@meridacap.com, you can, I kind of feel like my job is to try to educate sometimes, which is bizarre to hear this because the struggles that it took to get here, to just give it out for free seems a little weird, but I feel like whether it was Leo, what he was saying before, whether it's undoing, disproportionate incarceration of minorities. I grew up with my mom. She was a teacher in the Bronx. She used to commute 3 hours to teach math in a junior high school on Mashula Parkway. So we've always had a strong commitment to the community, and this started as a medical passion for me. And to be in a position, I can't say this any more humbly, like I'm just blown away by the fact that anyone cares what I think. So, how do you get involved is, my newest employee who's in the back, Max, he would be engaged. He would write us things, and he would send us his resume, and he would follow things and comment and be engaged. And there's unlimited opportunity right now. I know Brian, as an example, and his partner, they've been grinding for like 2.5 years to get a business up and running, and I respect that. And really, if you want to be an entrepreneur in the space, there's certain parts of the space that are no longer mom and pop. It's just reality, right? The multi-state operators, if you have a home grow law, there might be some opportunities there, but for now, the way to get involved is to really find what you're passionate about. And I mean, this is a space, I don't know if you guys realize this, people are pretty passionate about it, right? Just a little. And not just the product, but like the building and growing. Like the early days, you would get in fist fights over whether you were going to use, high pressure sodium lights or LED in the propagation room. And maybe that's why I'm on the ancillary side nowadays, because I just want to give them whatever they want. I don't want to get in those fights anymore. But, I mean, the growers, you're talking about an industry that started all illegal. Everyone was taking chances in California about going to jail. And so there's an ethos that grew out of California. And I think one of the things that Merida's done well is we were a little early in understanding those two bifurcated industries, the limited licensing market and the California pioneering ethos, or the Colorado, where that evolution happened so quick. It's so mature now that, like, if you're an edible maker in New York, you can't even operate yet. You have to wait for rec or to get a license, or maybe you can license your name. Whereas in California, it's, you want me and you right now, 50 grand, dude, we've got an edible company. It's a very Me Too product out there. So how do you get involved is you figure out where you live and what your passion is and how much you're willing to like struggle. Because I don't care what anyone thinks. I struggle. I mean, there have been days, the day after that Maryland loss, I was like, I'm done. I can't believe that I've given, I left like a really successful legal and finance career to get slaughtered in the paper in Baltimore. Everyone knew we lost. Everyone knew how much money we lost, and everyone knew the reputational, because we had won in other states, and everyone expected, and then it was just vapor. And I think you've got to be willing to grind through some really tough times if you want to achieve. And look, I can't even express how hard it has been to get here. But I know that every single person here has an opportunity if you have passion and if you're willing to work hard and if you're willing to look past some of the quirks in the space. I mean, how many people have you worked with that are a little off? But then there's amazing people who are doing incredible things. So identifying those people early is better, but
I don't
we
think
were
I'm
bad.
legally allowed to comment.
Okay. So, sure. I mean, so there's the way to get involved is to really, when people ask, like, what is Merida? And if you want to flip to the slide or what, bottom right corner. Okay. So I'm going to stand because I'm just a pretty hyper person, so I like to move around. But, when people ask what Merida is, really at our core, we're consumers of information in a space that has routinely been hampered by opaque information or by the lack of an ability for, you guys hear me without the mic at all? No? Okay.
Mike's working?
Yeah, it's just cutting out. Yeah, okay. Is that better? Can you guys hear me better now? Okay. So we're consumers of information because 2 years ago, like I said, you couldn't even figure out where to get vape cartridges from or some other things. So what we have decided for our ethos, our ecosystem connectivity ethos, is really built on the ability to consume massive amounts of information and then turn it into a synthesis, and then turn that synthesis into a concept, and then find companies that feed that concept, and then combine those companies into what we consider is the cannabis space, essentially, which is essentially these 6 verticals, which we've tried to deconstruct so people can understand, like, what is the cannabis space? Is it a grower? Is it a processor? It's all that. But really, when you think of the space, and I know Axel's in the room, like, we think of the government, the banking, the regulations as one vertical. There's not a lot of business. You're not going to be a bank. You're not going to be a regulator, and you're not going to be a government. But there are certain connectivity tools that are required for people because you're going to have to interact with the government if you want to be successful in the space. And you're going to have to interact with the government in a confident way. And the only way to do that is to use tools. So we look for tools that create, frictionless communications, transparency. And in fact, there's really 2 places where that vertical occurs. The testing labs is another place. You're not taking cannabis unless it's been tested in America. Now, look, there's certain states that are far less regulated, and those are idiosyncratically different. New York is one of the states that, on a scale of 1 to 10, is probably like a 7. Connecticut's like a 10, which is good because that's where I started. So I only know a hyper formal regulation. But when you think of a lot of people think of legalization as a deconstruction of the constraints around usage or around the industry. And the reality is it's much different. The government regulates everything you do when something's legal. And they tax it, and they watch it move, and they want to validate it. And they want to know, did you pay your taxes correctly? And so a lot of people have this mythology around what is the ecosystem of cannabis? Like, what is that business model that when it just gets unlocked the anarchy occurs? And it's not anarchy. It's going to be the opposite of anarchy. It's going to be orderly. It's going to be taxed. It's going to be weighed. It's going to be validated. And so we've tried to identify those friction points for all of that and then invest in things that deconstruct that. So just to quickly go through this, there's a cultivation and production. Just to be really quick on that, that's the sexy part that everyone loves. That's the MSOs, the multi-state operators. That's the people who like the Kiva chocolates, the Bang, all of the edible companies in the West Coast. That's a vertical that pretty much covers, cultivation, production, manufacturing, that element. And we have, at this point, 10 companies in that vertical. And some of the companies go, but just to quickly go through, there's Forefront, Candescent, which is one of the top flower brands in California. Emerald Scientific, you've never heard of that. Has anyone ever heard of Emerald Scientific? That's why people pay me $2.20. I'm just kidding. No, the point is that you can, when you're in the space a lot, you identify opportunities. So Emerald Scientific is a company that sells labs the little boring stuff that they can't get from LabCorp, they can't get from LabRx or places because those guys don't want to sell to cannabis companies. Which you may think, look, there's a lot of us wearing suits and we've all been in the space, and I recognize some people that have been in the space forever, and some of my friends here who I've known for 3 or 4 years, we've been grinding away. Banks close our accounts all the time. And Wells Fargo wouldn't let me refi. I didn't mean to out Wells Fargo, but I mean Wells Fargo. You gave Scott's Miracle-Gro $400 million to buy freaking a crappy company that they didn't need to buy, but I can't get a refi because I have a Wells Fargo mortgage. So, there's these little friction points you observe on your way. And so Emerald sells you the pipettes, the things you need to do testing, internal testing, potency testing that you want to do in-house. So those are little things people don't think about, but I want to invest in the things that people aren't thinking about so they don't have to think about it. Because it's just, people use toilet paper. Can you reuse it? Nope. That's where I want to be. So it's a boring investment model, but the ecosystem makes it work because all these companies work together. Emerald Scientific and Mainstem, which is this M with the leaf, Mainstem is a company that sits on top of BioTrack. It sits on top of Baker. And it says, what product do you want to buy right now? I'm going to show you 50 options with price improvement, with other models you may not see. I'm going to show you Dutch products. I'm going to show you a platform that allows you, like an Amazon store that sits on top of your electronics, whether it's your digital platform, whether it's your seed to sale, your point of sale. They're agnostic. That removes friction so that a grower who's working 15 hours a day to make sure his product's passing lab testing, that guy can get his product on the market, whether it's packaging and other things. And one of the biggest growing products on Mainstem's platform, Kush Packaging. Not a coincidence. So Vireo is one of the New York growers, but they're a multi-state operator. At this point, all these companies are going to be public within the next 6 months or 8 months. And, in a lot of ways, again, if you're really interested in the multi-state operators, feel free to send us an email at info@MeridaCap, and I'll make sure you get our recent commentary on multi-state operators. Which, Josh, I don't know if you want to vouch for it or if that was informative for you.
Yeah, so basically, Mitch writes these very long form. I did read it, by the way. So this is the first time that I've had homework for a CannaGather. He writes these long form analyses, very well thought through about different facets of the industry. It's the first one that I've read. Well, I guess I read one of the other ones when I first got the reflections. It's sort of analogous, like at least for me, analogous like a Bridgewater daily observation, a sort of holistic look, but also looking very precisely at a certain part. This one was about the MSOs, and I guess so you're involved with 2 MSOs in New York.
Randomly, yes, but I mean, right now, if you look at like the market, there's probably, because of public companies, there's thousands of people that are invested in 7 MSOs that have licenses, and like 5 years ago, Connecticut was actually making sure you weren't cross-pollinating between. They didn't even want you to own a dispensary and a grower at the same time. Now you can buy, a dispensary 3 seconds after someone gets the license, and somehow those rules have just gotten thrown out the window. So just to quickly finish, so processing is a thing that we're really passionate about because that's really about the medicine. I've seen a girl in Minnesota where I also was one of the 2 licensees, ironically Vireo being the other. I've seen a girl with epilepsy who hadn't held a fork in 7 years, literally had not slept more than an hour because of the seizures. She took a tincture, and within 3 weeks, she was talking in words for the first time in 6 years, holding a fork. She's back in school now. I mean, just to see this girl, it looked like she had cerebral palsy because people think of seizures as something that occurs, but it prevents your brain from developing. It prevents you from actually, as a young child. That's why people are so passionate. In fact, if it wasn't for those mothers in Minnesota and in New Jersey, they're the people, the advocates, the movement people who are getting in the trenches. Without them, I mean, maybe I wouldn't even have a chance to be up here speaking to you because who knows what I'd be doing. I mean, I guess I'd be doing legal and finance for God knows what kind of companies instead of helping people literally eat, remove, inflammation using manna, the manna molecular, the robot that makes every patch identical, right? So that you can take that with confidence so that you don't, overdose. Or it's just the guy who made that patch is the same guy who made the fentanyl patch, which is the highest selling patch in the history of mankind. So, so this is the Merida portfolio. You have dispensary retail, which a lot of these companies overlap. Kush is one of the largest investments we have. And, when I look at this and I look at people around here, I think of 2 years ago when, when we were begging people to give us a shot and give us 25, 50, 100 grand. And then I think of my fund, which just ran out of slots in Fund 2. And you guys are all making it happen. Like, I honestly, I think about a lot of the big guys that are on TV, and there's a lot of hype. And I'm sorry if I'm talking to this side of the room, but
Can you guys hear?
yeah, you know, it's I think of the PR elements, but then there's like thousands of people grinding away in labs to make formulations that every squirt is the same. I've seen like my lab team in Minnesota originally, they would freak out if like the spray didn't have the same halo on a piece of paper before it like went to market. And like there's some passionate people who are killing themselves to do this in a world where pharmaceutical companies have not engaged yet. You know, the people who have all the expertise are just starting to migrate in. And so I guess in some ways, like I'm really proud to be one of the people helping in some small way usher in this transition to a more professional industry, which is why we call ourselves, you know, responsible investing in the emerging cannabis industry.
Cool. I guess one question, we're here in New York, maybe some from New Jersey or even Connecticut.
Sure.
Well, some are from Connecticut. Where do you recommend people play, and what is sort of the guidance that you'd give as both a former entrepreneur and a current investor?
Yeah, if you're an entrepreneur, I mean, right now, because of the way licensing works, you probably want to think of yourself a little bit like the guys who make like, I don't know what the heck those things that go on an Apple phone are that pop out, but my 14-year-old has one. You want to think of yourself as like an amplifier of an existing company, or maybe you want to create a formulation or some type of food product that can actually be worked in conjunction with an existing licensee. I mean, that's one of the challenges is the choke points, right? In the limited license, you know, the East Coast is actually going to, we used to say to people, I remember being in an ArcView in 2013, maybe it was early 14, right after I'd won a Connecticut license, and everyone laughing when we told them that we had won a license in Connecticut. They're like, it's even legal there? You know, all the California people like laughed at us. And then they were like, how big's your building? And I'm like, I don't know, 65,000 square feet. And they're like, oh, okay, whoa, that's no joke. How much you spend on it? I'm like, $8 million. At that time, no one was doing that. The East Coast regulation really has helped usher in a new industry. It's given government confidence to keep passing these laws and keep moving forward. And New Jersey deserves a lot of credit. I mean, their program was built incorrectly originally, but they're trying their best to fix it. And, you know, New York deserves a ton of credit. Forcing insurance companies to reimburse for the initial visit. Like, you don't realize there are people, they're not getting reimbursement for the most part. So New York has taken a very progressive step by making, you know, if you get a medical card at a visit, you get reimbursed. That's like a $200 subsidy to program. That matters to people who are broke and need this medicine so they can walk the next morning, so they don't have to take an opioid. And, you know, when I think of those stuff, it's really humbling to be here talking about this stuff when you see stuff like that. But, you know, as an entrepreneur, you've got to find something that touches a licensee or some type of amplifier, like a BrightMap, like a technology platform. If you have an expertise in technology, hey, our companies are always looking. You know, everyone's heard of, probably. I mean, they're building an econometric data platform that will be able to give you everything on demand. And you'll be able to see the tax rates in Northeast Colorado versus Southeast New Jersey and judge which is a better investment. So, you know, there's ways to play the space, but like I said before, you better be ready to grind because it's not going to be easy. There's a lot of people fighting, and these licensees are like choke points. And, you know, or you can move to Colorado where people move a little slower out there. You probably have a better chance of just kind of, New Yorkers tend to have a little bit more energy than those. So that's a joke, by the way. Totally joke. I'm sorry.
I wanted to ask one more question about brands, but we don't have time. So let's open it up to questions from y'all. Any questions? Bobby Bailey.
Oh man, she emails me these questions from time to time as well. But
the question was,
wow, that is
he sponsoring
I
any
almost
research?
feel like someone may have tipped you off on that one. So the question was, am I sponsoring any research? I'm subsidizing a lot of it, but no. I'm currently, I don't want to say which state, but there are certain states that have certain carve-outs for medical research, and I am currently in discussions to do a chemotherapy-induced peripheral neuropathy study, because most of, when you see people who take chemo, whether if it's platinum-based medicine or taxanes, their fingers, their toes, they have to reduce their dosage because you can only tolerate so much of those medicines. Your taste goes away so you don't eat. So we're going to do a study using nanomolecular patches, hopefully, where we're going to look if we can reduce or increase the tolerance to these medicines, because there's really no medicine for neuropathy. Oh, I know Jeff from UCLA. You know my partner Peter. Yeah. So we have 2 partners in San Fran. We have 1 person in LA now. We have 3 in the Mid-Atlantic. I mean, we're around, and we're talking to all the major doctors in the space now. It was amazing. Yeah. Well, Jeff is a leader. I mean, there's people in Connecticut doing incredible things. Deb Kimless is a close partner of mine. I don't know if you know Deb, but she's one of the top researchers at the International Cannabinoid Research Society. Yeah, she's amazing. So
the question was around Jeff Chen, who's a UCLA researcher.
yeah, he's a great guy.
Margaret.
Yeah.
In the fund that you're closing now, which of these
we only have
verticals
so much
do you
room
expect to have
left
the
on the
most
page.
activity?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, what do you mean by activity? Like, oh, well, these are already existing companies. So yeah. So, I think we're good on cultivation and production for the most part. We're really interested in formulations and deconstructing the terpene and cannabinoid profiles. Doing a lot of work with isolates. Freedom Leaf, which is one of our new investments, it's a public company. We're doing a fair amount of research. Okay, we got some fans. I will tell you, for a small public company, man, they have a really passionate base of people. But
well, they got Steve Bloom, so
yeah,
that's all you need.
Yeah, so we love cannabinoid research and CBD. We just bought a hemp beverage company because we really want to deconstruct. We think wellness is just as important as Freedom Leaf. So we're interested on the lab testing. We're trying to correlate nutrients that people use to the downstream lab testing. I mean, we're doing a lot of interesting things. Like I said before, first and foremost, what Merida is, and obviously my mom as a math teacher, there's a math background, our family data, and I come from that background as well. We consume information and data and then look for ways to correlate that to wellness or correlate that. So we're really interested in how patients are interacting with their doctors and whether there's a drug interaction, because none of that stuff's really been fleshed out. And for this to really grow as a medicine, it's going to need those verticals to be fleshed out. So I think the medical sides, like processing, testing, are going to be places where we're a lot more involved.
Let's do one last question. Right there. Question was, what are your thoughts on opportunities for public investors, given that all of this, except for Freedom Leaf, is private?
No, Freedom Leaf, Kush,
Kush,
and Grow Generation. 3 of them.
Sorry, disclaimer, I'm an investor in Kush as well. Forgot.
Yeah. Yeah, you should really. I mean, Kush is like your major sponsor, but
that too.
I'll tell Nick tonight when I'm on my way home.
Great guy.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you've been watching the market, there's a lot of MSOs going public, which is why I wrote about it today. I think private is still going to be the way to go because that's where you find innovation and better valuations for now. But I do think the public markets, I mean, I can say this, it's been one of the more humbling and flattering things over the last 3 months, is we've attracted a lot of attention to go public because a lot of the things that are public are like single thematic, and people feel like Merida is multi-thematic. And, look, I don't know what the future brings, but I will say that the public markets are tricky because you have to be willing. I do come from a public company background, so I'm comfortable with it, but a lot of cannabis companies aren't the greatest at management reporting. And, right now the biggest thing on the public market is a biological value adjustment, which a lot of companies are using to make their earnings. It's a scary thing when you really drill through it. So if you look at the MSOs, that's the only line item that matters. That's where all the juicy stuff is hidden. So I know Max, my analyst, who's a wonderfully brilliant kid, he laughs because the first thing I say is, get me the biological value adjustment. But what I would say is there is opportunity. I mean, one thing I just want to really express is how, first of all, again, I'm blown away. Thank you so much for listening and being so patient. And I know I talk a lot. Trust me, self-awareness is very important to doing what I do. I can't say enough that watching smart people who ask great questions and are so interested in this is going to be huge in a few years, but it's going to be different. And it's going to look different because people who have seen some of the tidal wave earlier are now starting to shift into formulations, into medical side, things that you couldn't do. There was so much friction there, and you only have so much time in a day and so much energy, and that's why this industry is so hard, is because you're fighting. I mean, gosh, I would say that I'm a pretty good upstream swimmer at this point. 5 years of, I just want to tell, if I can tell one quick anecdote.
Of course.
As a really
About
humbling.
swimming?
Okay, well, not quite. So my original partner's in Connecticut. My partner was in a wheelchair, Ethan, and I love that guy to death. And obviously I do other things now, but one of the things I miss is that original, we have no idea what we're doing. There's no rule book, but we're going to do it anyway and figure out a way. And that's what you really need to succeed in this industry. Not that I've succeeded and done anything worth really discussing other than Josh being nice enough to have me here. But we did a pitch to an investment company, and the woman who ran that investment company, her family came from bootleggers. And anyone who's been in the space long enough has heard the casino analogy, the alcohol analogy, and one of my partners used to say it's like the internet meets prohibition, which if you really think of it doesn't really mean much. But people got it. They're like, yeah, right? And so it was our first investment pitch. And the way we did the financing for that first operator was, if you wanted to take pure naked licensing risk, you could write a check, but that could be vapor. But if we won, you get a low valuation. And so we were pitching big money now, hey, it's after, if we win, your money's going to sit in escrow, and if we lose, you get it back. But if we win, that's our operating capital. And to be honest, it's been copied a lot, and I take some credit for being the first person to think of bifurcating those risk modules. But so we said to the people who introduced us, hey, what was your feedback? We had a really good meeting. And she goes, they said you were amateurs. So I had done $2 billion of transactions in my life. It was the most humbling thing in the world. And so when we found out that we had scored first in the state, the first thing we said when we looked at each other was, amateurs. So I'm going to leave it on that note.
Thank you. So, as all of you may know, we often go across the street to Doro Lay for free pizza and discounted drinks. Censored. Now with CBD cocktails. So I will be there. I guess my last question for you is, will you join us at the after party?
You can't say what I just said and be genuine and not let every person ask every freaking question and answer everyone until you guys want to leave.
Okay, beautiful.
And also, my wife, who's not here right now, but I'm sure it'll be taped, and Dave's met her in the back. He's one of my investors. The stress on your family is something I think that a lot of people in the room can probably assess. When you're grinding away and you're working, it affects your life. I will say in one way that I've been lucky to be surrounded by an incredible woman who herself has some health challenges and has seen the benefits of CBD. And I've had a really supportive family. Without that, I wouldn't be here tonight. And I will answer every question. You'll all have my phone number. And if you call me, Josh will tell you, I'll answer. I often get people that are like, hey, I'm looking for someone at Merida. And I'm like, you're speaking to the CEO. And, those guys, New York has one of the most progressive laws. Without guys like that, it moves the needle. Other regulators, one of my board advisory members is Bill Rubenstein, who built the Connecticut program. First 2 years, that guy helped other states. What Axel and his team are doing, it's changing the landscape for medical cannabis, and eventually that changes the landscape for all cannabis.